Okay, so we're gonna record how to put stuff into Unreal from scratch. So I'm gonna go over to UE5. I suggest you all use UE5 just because it's got some of the cool stuff. I've already got the access ready here, and probably what I need to do is go to Library, and then we're gonna say, that's not it, that's my games. Thank you for being so weird. Thank you. We'll go to Library here. And here's the one we were just working on. We're going to do that same thing. We're going to do it from scratch. So I'm going to say launch Unreal 5. Move that out of the way. And I'm going to get this option that comes up. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to make a game. And then I want to have it be I think it's the third person, yeah. And I'm gonna leave it to blueprint. That's the way we're gonna do our textures and stuff. I'm gonna change where this is, probably someplace a little bit friendlier for my hard drive. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put it in the D drive for the class, and we'll go to Spring, we'll go to 3DMR2, and we'll say select this folder, and then we're gonna call this project say create. And maximum, I want ray tracing. You can leave ray tracing on if you want. I have ray tracing on my computer. I'm just going to leave it off so you all have something similar in case you don't have ray tracing. And then I'll say create. And then over on my other one, it's doing some stuff here. Okay. So it's going to build it. And here we are. So here's our Unreal. And if I go up here and press play, spacebar. But if I press play, I have that same character running around. Everything's good. It's got shadows. Here's a trick that you can do inside of it. If I press escape, it gets out of it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to look at, we could just build everything inside of here. We could delete it and rebuild everything in here. But we're going to do it a little bit different. So let me move my mic a little closer. Okay. So, and I've learned this from people on ArtStation, and it's a really great lesson. And if you have the chance, make sure you pay up to $70 for a year, and you have awesome tutorials on there, better than any I've seen. And this is one of them that I saw are about. We're going to take this, and if I go Control L, you'll see that thing pops up. What that is actually my lights. I can move my lights around any way I want. I can set it to any time of day. And one of the things that they pointed out is that it doesn't change your sky. So we're going to get rid of this. We aren't going to use this one after all. What we're going to do is say create, or we're going to say file, new level, and it's going to come up with options. We're going to do the time of day options. And then we're going to save it, third person example. We're going to say file, third person. Don't save selected, which is the one I was just playing with, and then we get this new scene. So we have a new scene. One of the shortcuts you'll need to know is G. G will get rid of all these extra icons and stuff you may not want. Everything in this scene is actually an object, so I could come and just delete, and I can grab this one and delete, and I can grab this one and delete, and I can grab this one and delete. So the next thing we're going to do is set up a folder for ourselves. So I'm going to dock this real quick. Okay, I'm not. Well, I think I did dock it, but I kind of hit it earlier. Okay. Hang on. There we go. So by default, everything goes into this content folder. What I like to do, and what they were talking about doing, and it makes sense, is keeping everything organized. And when we did Unity, we always set it into another folder for art and stuff. So I would do the same thing, something like that. But for us, what we'll do is we'll say new folder, and we'll say 3D or 3D MR3. Which is the class. Open this up, and then I'll make a folder just like we did before. If you've been in my other classes, one for geometry, and then a new folder, one for textures, and then new folder, one for materials, and then we'll think of other ones as we need them. Okay, so we still have the same thing set up. It's just inside of our 3DMR folder. This is a lot like what Unity does, but it's a little bit different. So the big difference is that this folder doesn't act, when I bring stuff into Unreal, I can't just drag and drop it inside of Windows. I actually have to import it. I think you may be able to, but they suggest you do the importing anyway. So we're going to do that. So, what I can do is I can open this up, go to Show and Explorer, and then pull my Explorer over here, and you can see where it is. And what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and make it. Interestingly, that's funny. The content folder is right there. Configure barn car. I'm going to make this right outside of it, and what I'll do, this is going to be my source folder. Now, it doesn't matter where you save it, but you want to put your source folder kind of by where you put your game folder. Just that way, it's very similar to the layout. So I'm just going to do this, do new, and say barn car, and say source. Whether you keep your Max or Maya or Blender files in here or not is up to you, but I'm going to call this source file. And then what I would do normally is I'd just take all of this folder and I would just copy this into here. So you have the same setup inside of both these folders, and that way I can get to stuff. So now that I have that set up, and now that I have my folders all set up, I just need to start bringing stuff in here. It's that easy. So if I take a look at this room, and we can see that I hit a bunch of stuff, so I'm gonna unhide a bunch of stuff, and back wall, back object. I'll leave those up for now. Make sure everything else is there except for the car. Yeah, and I have it all set up, and I have that little thing there, and there's some kind of, there's things that are colliding through the ground, not a big deal. Lift them up a little bit if I want. They're just for bugging my brain. I'm going to grab everything, select it all, and then I'm going to come up to in Max's viewport. I'm going to say export selected, and then I'm going to come into that folder we were just in. So in this case, Melon Barn, I'm going to go back out to Spring, or I'll just go up 1, 2, and I'll come into Barn Source, 3D MR3, Geometry, and then I will save this here and call this Barn Block Out, like that. And then I'm going to make sure I've smoothed the groups on. It'll complain if you don't. And then everything else I just kind of leave the same. I don't really care about converting dummies to bones or any of that stuff, but I just leave it simple like that, and it seems to be fine. So I'll say OK, and I exported it. It's all exported now. Done. Come back over to Unreal and go to the geometry folder, and then I'm going to right click in there and say import asset from file to this folder, and then obviously all I have to do is go back to here, Spring 22, 3D MR3, source folder, geometry, block out, open. Okay, so the things I want to make set up inside of here, obviously I don't care about like skeletal mesh, but there are a few things we want to make sure are turned on. This stuff is fine. This stuff is fine. Materials, I'm going to say do not create materials. We're going to make our own. I'm going to say, in here somewhere, is combine meshes. I want my whole object, every piece to be the same object. That just makes it really simple and really fast to get in there, and the collision's a little bit better. Not much, but it's an important thing to add in there. You don't want to import your textures either, because we have no textures on it. So we'll do our own textures and our own materials inside of Unreal, and then we'll say import. And it'll take a second here. And once it imports, it's still not in the game, but it's all there, and I got a bunch of error messages and stuff. Let it finish what it's doing. Degenerate tangent, resulting in incorrect shading. That's fine, we don't care because we know it's not the final. The binomials create some issues, that's fine. We don't care, it's not the final. The other thing I'm going to do real quick is all I'd have to do now is kind of just drag it out there. And there's my barn, and it's set into space. Now I want to make sure that it's set to 0, 0, 0, just so we have everything zeroed out, just like normal. And then if I go inside of here, it's all set up. Now, the first thing I want to point out, if you use W while you're in here, well, I use the right mouse button, but if you use W, use WASD for moving around, just like a normal keyboard game, and then also up and down is at. I just did this a minute ago. Q and E. So E goes up and Q goes down, so it's just like that. Now I have it all set up. There's one object in here. I'm going to right click off that, but what I'm going to do, actually, let's go into here. And it's, you know, all my holes in my walls are doing what I kind of want it to do, just to give it that interior look. It doesn't have enough light yet, but we'll play with that. It also probably should put a plane in here is what I like to do. So I'm going to create, and then I'm going to say shapes, and I'm going to say a cube, and then I'm going to scale it in the same shortcuts that we have in every other program. I'm just going to scale it down really thin, then I'm going to move it to 0, 0, 0, and then I'm going to drag it down below like that, and then I'm going to scale it in two directions, this way. And I'm just giving myself some distance off in the distance here. So if I look outside of the barn, I'm just making a plane for it to sit on. It's doing nothing for the actual level. It's just something to break up the space, and lighting will be a little bit different. We'll move this up just a tad bit. I don't want it to clip with my ground, so I may not get it much higher than that, but that's fine. Okay, so now I've got that all set up. The other thing, just like in before, if I Control L, it all of a sudden it moves, turns on this, Control L, it turns on this object that makes me be able to turn the sky around. The difference is that the sky in this one will change colors for the time of day. So I can actually tell it to go from this way and give me some nice light this way. This is still all, oops, I guess I pushed too far down, hold on. It'll like go at the right time here. I'll get some of this orange in here. Okay. And the other thing you have to realize is this isn't just the directional light, but it's also affecting the sky as I change the directional light, and it's coming from that direction. So if I wanted to make this brighter by default, and I haven't baked any lights, this is just Unreal's basic lighting setup, I can come in here and go to the light of the directional light, which is our skylight, and change the strength to like 10. And now I've got more light coming in. So, you know, you can do as much as you want or as little as you want. Obviously you want to try and keep it something realistic, but now we can see stuff in here, but it's still pretty dark. So probably what I'll do is say 10 for now, just to keep it something strong, and then maybe Control L again and move the light around a little bit, give it some more brightness, do something like this. But I'm probably still gonna have to put some lights in here real quick. They're really easy to do inside of something like Unreal. You have to, there's actually, I think that if you Control L and move and click, let me try that, Control L and click, or maybe, I don't want to mess up my lights, my problem. Not that they can't be fixed, but if I click, it drops light in there. So if I say Control L and click, it dropped the light in there when I clicked. Okay, so then I pull this up and I take a look and see how bright this light is not. Interestingly. And let's see how the fall off is, which is attenuation. Maybe we'll turn this up a bunch. And this is a point light, it's interesting. So it's definitely going to put light in here, and we can play with how strong we want it and all that stuff. We'll do 1, we'll do 2, okay. And we can change the color of it and all the other things we may want to. And move this around, get some good stuff on it. Part of the problem is we don't have a real texture on it yet, or a material. So we're going to fix that in a second too. But that's all we have to do, first part of it. Then the next thing we do is we'd import the car. So I'll go back to Max real quick from me. And one of the things I did wrong, and I'll just hide selection, and then unhide the Avenger, is I moved this in position. So the problem with that is, compared to the world, the car is off center. So when I import this in there, the pivot point's going to be in the wrong spot. So I was doing that, you know, just to play with where it was in the environment, but I just need to do that in the engine instead of trying to do it here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to W and zero this out. And then I'm going to go to rotation. And I change this to 0, so I have it straight forward and back. And then I'm going to export it. I'm going to go to the same place I did before, and we'll call this car test. We'll throw it in, and then we'll come back to here, and we'll right-click and say import 3D geometry, and car test is in the same folder it was just in. All this stuff is fine. I don't even need to mess with any of it. The only other thing I think I may have missed on the other one was nanite somewhere, but oh, there it is, build nanite, import all, and there it is in that, and I can just throw it in the game and then change its position to be okay, and then it looks like it needs to be rotated or whatever. And don't be surprised if it gets really dark when you first come in here, because it has to build the lighting every time you come into here. But I'll just rotate it around, move it kind of like over here, take a look at what it looks like, and then we'll start throwing some textures on here, materials. So since we don't have our materials for these yet, we're just going to make new ones. So I went down to the material folder, and I'm going to say, I guess I don't need a material folder out of here, by the way. I'm going to say material. And then I'm going to name this MM, because the way Unreal does things is it makes a master material and then it makes what are called instances. So what you'll do is you'll tell the master material to have things that can change, and then you can duplicate it, and whatever you've said the master material allows the secondary material to change, it can change, and it's really fast and really convenient way. But we'll say base mat for now, and we double click on it in here. And I think it's going to come on the other viewport because that's where I look at it. So it's over here. And by default, it's in here with this new material. And I just want to come in and do a simple drag it out and say something like color. Actually, no, I think it's control or V and click. It turns it into a vector. Change this right here, and we'll call this color. And then I'm gonna click in here, change it to a white-ish color. Don't want it completely white so it doesn't bleach it out. I'm gonna say base color, put it into there. It takes a second and it builds it out. If I want, I can do that for all the parts. I just don't care, I just want the colors for now. So then you have to save it after you make your changes. I'll just go ahead and close this one. That for now, and then I'm just going to drag and drop it onto the environment. And that's part of the reason it was so dark, is because the base textures and everything in there were different, were off. So now by just having that white material on here that's a lot softer, we can see better what we're looking at. Is everybody following me so far? Next thing we're going to do is add. My brain is working today. Hold on 1 second. So what we're going to do is test it real quick. So if I press play on it right now, I fall. There's no collision. I am falling forever. So that's a problem. So we need to make collision. And normally we wouldn't do it this way, but we're going to do the not most expensive, but an expensive way to do collision. Again, because we're going to import everything separately, and we can take care of collision individually when we do those. But for collision, for this point, for this world, all we need to do is come to the actual object here, geometry, go to double click on it. Again, brings up this. This is a geometry information. And then we're going to scroll all the way down to collision. And then inside of collision, we're going to change project or collision comp to use complex collision as simple, and then save. And then we can close this. And now if I press play, I am in the world. So now I can run around, super easy, but like I said, it's expensive. I don't think, well, the car might have it too apparently, but, or the car is blocky enough. Yeah, the car is just blocked out. So if we look at how this looks, you can see that the collision lit player collision is that. Everything else has its own collision, but the car is just a big box. And if I cared, I could come back in and put the car as perfect collision or closer to perfect collisions, but that's that. So that's the next thing you have to do. And the last thing I want you to do is start thinking about the power, or the thirds, the law of thirds when you're looking at an object. So I'm going to move this around a little bit and get it to where I want it, kinda. Let me get back in here. Come on, you're killing me. Oh, I guess I shouldn't use the scroll. Okay, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to move this over. That's going up and down. Grab the wrong one. Move this over. Maybe rotate it like this. It's got a snap on, which is fine. And then I'm going to take a look at it from the back. Like this. And figure out where I want it. I think I had it back further. I kind of want it back further, so I'm going to move it over here. And then I'll move it down. And then maybe pull back out. Okay, so what we have is it's set up, everything's in there, kind of blocked out what we want, but now we got to figure out how we want to present it, right? We want to know when we show it what is going to be seen. And I'm going to get rid of that light for now, secondary light, just because I don't think it's doing anything. So how do I do that? Well, it's really cool inside of Unreal, I have to say. You can come over here to perspective and change to cinematic viewport, and then zoom back into where you were, and it takes a second to light up again. And then what you're going to try and do is use the power of thirds, or the view, or the Fibonacci, if you want, whatever you call it, and place, and I'm going to pull this camera angle down so it's not such a wide screen here, like this. And actually I can just close content browser. Okay. And I'm going to move my camera around, so basically the most important thing hits the middle of the third area, and then the second area is something too that draws your eye. So you can get this, basically it's a spiral to get to look for, and it's really cool inside of Unreal because you can just push this grid. And now I've got this perfect lineup that I can figure out if this is what I like, or if I want to go up higher, maybe move it over and interesting, or pull it down close and do something like this, maybe move it over. And I'm trying to shoot for the top of this third to be centered on the car or the other side, and then this side to be at least kind of bringing my eye back to it. So it may not be here yet, it may need some more adjustments with the positions and stuff, but at least I can start to think about it, and at least I can say ooh, ah. And you really want to, if you look at cinematography, if you look at photography, they do this all the time. They try and like all off camera stuff and try and keep your eye moving. And we could try it this way too. I like this way for some reason, probably because it's angled in that direction. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. I'm not really trying to force it at this point. I'm trying to find an interesting angle. It's not perfect, it's just something to get something started. So that's pretty good. And then I'm going to push Control and 1, and then I can move over here maybe and take this shot and do something. That's too much. I want to get more of the car this way. And you can see I didn't even put an interior in this car yet, so there was a windshield, but maybe like that, or maybe go up high. You know, you want to kind of give them a story. Again, this is about storytelling and what it's what you're trying to sell here. In this case, you're trying to sell yourself. So that's a pretty good shot, maybe like that. And then I can push Control 2. And what I'm doing is setting up shots, and if I push 1, it jumps back to that shot, and if I push 2 now, it sets up for the other shot. And then I want you to do 3 of these for Wednesday. I want you to bring it into Unreal and set up 3 of these shots. However you want to do it, whatever you think looks best. You can set up more. If you want to have other opinions and get ideas, you can set up a bunch. But get it in the engine, set up your base lighting, your exterior lighting. Now, some of you aren't going to have any interior or lighting from the outside coming in. That's fine. That just means that you're going to have to do a little bit of work by putting real lights into the scene. And that's as easy as I was just showing you. It's just really dark. It won't be so bright, so the lights will work better. So if I take this and say Control 3, let's say I like that one. So what I mean is if I pull back out here and I say create, and I'm going to go ahead and create a shape that's a cube, and then just like we did a minute ago, and then scale that cube up and out and over. Let's see if it hit the whole thing or not. Nope. Like this, and then maybe move it. Basically, I'm trying to cover the whole barn, so if your environments don't have any exterior light being able to hit inside of it, which is totally fine because that was part of the assignment originally for sure. Yeah. We'll go ahead a little bit more and just scale it out. And now when I go in here, hopefully my theory it should be really dark inside of here. Yeah. So now it's dark inside of here, and that's fine because now I have to put my lights in. And I'm not looking for perfection lights. All right. Don't worry about if your lights are not working the way you want them to, but get some light in here so we can see what's going on. So, and again, that's just create and then lights. You could do the control and click too. We'll just do a point light there, and then move it up. Maybe we'll get out of perspective, default view, zoom back in here, and get this light up off the ground. And you can see because it's dark in here, not getting light anywhere else, it works. It was the material that made things super dark. So, you know, you can move this around, you can change the strength of it and go back to 1. You know, you probably want something subtle like this. You can change this position, put it over here a little bit more, and then you're going to control, I think it's Control W, yeah, it's Control W, weird numbering and lettering. And wherever you think the lights are going to be in your environment, if you're using lighting, like light objects, then you just have to put them in. G should make them disappear. So we can, you know, move these around, pull this up. Let's say I have a light here, and then go ahead and turn this down to 0.5. Turn this one to 0.5. Maybe get a little softer color off of it. Like this. Warmers, pull this up, and so you understand, it's not going to look perfect. That's the way it's supposed to feel at this point. This again is probably too high, so let's do 0.15. There we go. All of these are probably way too high. You want to feel some darkness in here. That, this one, move it over. You can also tell how far off the light stops and starts, you know, how far off it shadows and stuff. But just to give you an idea, this is a really, like I said, a crappy card. But if I came back in here and I went to 3DMR, my materials, and I said create new material, we'll call this car material. And then I right click on this or double click on this and go into here and grab this off of here and say texture, sample, and then I take this and I go off and say texture, object, and then I grab this, I think it is. Oh, and then I come back to my drawer. Let me raise this up here. And I'm actually going to go back out of Windows, back in here, and then I'll come and find (3D) melon textures. Copy, and then I'm just taking the materials that I have for this and putting them in here now too. So take out a melon, go back to 3D Mark 3 textures, paste. And then I think, go back to textures. Oh, I think you have to do import source 3D Mark 3 textures and import these in. But now they're in the right spot, and I can just drag, I think, that onto here. Nope. Hold on, I gotta remember all the material types here. I think it's texture. I swear it's this. Oh, there we go. And now if I save it, and I close this, and I open this, and I go back to materials, I drag that onto this. See, things will start to look better. So just realize at this point there's no textures on anything, so they're supposed to kind of look that way. And if you're lighting it by hand, you just have to go in there and fight with it to get the lights the way you want. Do the best you can, and we'll keep tweaking it till the end of class. Control W, let's throw another light in here. Yes, and the reason we can see outside is because the box is one-sided. As soon as I get out of the box, I can't, it's a one-sided box. Hold on, I'll draw it out again here. This is what I mean about the lighting turns itself back on. So after you do all that, then you want to say save, current level, and then you want to name it barn car for me. And then I'll save it, and I'll put it in 3D Mark 3, and I'll make a new folder called scene, or levels, I guess, in this program. Open it up and say save. Okay. And that's it.